presidential pardon of Mark Rich, who was part of this espionage, Israeli espionage ring. Wow. They're the ones that brought down the towers on the day of 9/11 for George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, and these Templar Illuminati bankers that Bush Sr. is.
We're talking about Mossad relations here, right? I mean, these are some of the people that are involved here.
Yes, yes.
I was going to say, I want to say that, yeah, it's the Mossad. It's a small faction. Even the American Jewish advocates supporting our neoconservative movement and the power they had with Bush tended to only reflect a narrow part of Israel's population that thought that somehow greater war was going to make Israel safe. They have the same problem we do. A very small elite tend to control everything. So
it's Anwar Ben Shari, if I may. It's Anwar Ben Shari of Israel, who's the head rabbi of the synagogues worldwide, is a Satanist like George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, Leonard Millman, and others, who are the 100 Templar bankers worldwide, what they refer to as the Council of 13, the Illuminati that controls 90% of the wealth of the world. Go ahead, Brett.
Well, one question, is this rabbi supposedly the 13th Templar?
He's one of the 13th. Yeah, he's one of the 100 Templar bankers, they call it, who are ripping us off on all these bank deals right now, but he's one of them. He's the one that controls Israel, and he's the head rabbi, just like this current Pope, Benedict. He's a Knights Templar banker. If they can control the churches in the world, they can control masses of people. This Templar banker, Anwar Ben Shari, is a Satanist, does human sacrifices, is going around molesting children, running rampant with all his stuff, and he claims to be the head rabbi for the synagogues worldwide of the Jewish religion.
Well,
the same way with Pope. This Pope is the same way.
Has he ever been charged? Has he ever been charged with any of these crimes?
He has been, just like George Herbert Walker Bush. I mean, there's been person after person, victims of sexual pedophilia against children, et cetera. Kathy O'Brien, you can look her up on the internet. You might look her up. She's got a book. I mean, I've met Kathy. I've talked with her and Mark Phillips. I know a whole bunch of these. Barbara Hartwell's sister was a victim. Many people, former CIA Barbara Hartwell, you look her up on the internet. I mean, it's just one person after another this has gone on. My ex-wife was a victim because they take their own children to these parties and pass their own little girls and little boys around at the pre-ritual parties because Leonard Millman was holding them at number 1 Eudora Street in Denver. I found out 10 years after I divorced this woman. But this is the way they are. They practice their religion of Satanism. They sell their souls, and they practice because they're working on their New World Order, total control.
I could never have believed any of this 10 years ago, but, looking in the court system and trying to figure out what's the motivation for what's happening. For instance, we can pretty clearly see our Treasury Department being totally ripped off. But how do you steal so much money? You can't. They're stealing so much money that the U.S. dollar is worth so much less that you couldn't possibly even be profiting from your crime after a certain point. So why are they doing it? And then you tend to have to look for what's the motive behind it. Why would you not enforce any of the laws in healthcare and watch, Al-Qaeda didn't have an air force. We lost 37 auto plants. Did anybody see any bombers going overhead? No. Not a was enforced against
it. Doesn't it seem like the so-called quota?
Does it seem like the so-called what?
You were cutting out, Chris.
I'm sorry.
Chris?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, all right, they're cutting on my phone here. it just seems to me, like you said, isn't it odd that, our dollar value is going down and down and down, so it's really not worth anything. Why would they collapse our economy? There has to be a motive, as you said.
Yeah.
There has to be a motive. So a lot of these quote-unquote conspiracies now start to untangle themselves and may even make sense, even to the non-believers. And the motivation to hand out billions of dollars in stimulus to companies, that put themselves out of business, and we're supporting them so that, the big CEOs can take bailouts and parachutes, is absurd. And why would that take place if it wasn't their intention on collapsing our economy? And I remember, reading on your site, Stu, and listening to a couple of our other interviews where literally trillions of dollars have been stolen and put in offshore accounts. And, why is this all taking place? Yeah, it's greed, but there's a motive. That Illuminati, one world, global government, whatever you want to call it, motive seems to add up at every turn. That's just my opinion here, but this is what I see. What do you think about that?
Well, you could go ahead, Fred. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you can read their own documents, Club of Rome, the CFR or its English version. I mean, it tends to be what they've planned out over 20 or 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, what are you doing now, Brett? You've been disbarred. Are you still working with David Price?
No, I do talk to him about every other day. He's such a local celebrity now. His time's getting pretty scarce, but no, I have no income. I'm the future. If you speak up in America, well, like you two gentlemen were committing some UN crimes here. You're talking about whether the leadership of some churches would be have governments enforce criminal laws against them. I guarantee you, 2 years from now, you'll be seeing governments enforce UN-inspired laws against hate speech that will make you all the criminals for what you said.
Well, you know what? I got to tell you something right now. If I had to worry about trying to expose criminals that are destroying our country and that are risking our next generations to come, and also being a victim personally of these criminals in ways that I've discussed in on my website and in other interviews that I've done, my motivations are sincere in that respect. I don't like being attacked by these people with all kinds of high-powered technology to down our country. So I am an American, I am a patriot, and there's just no doubt that I don't just roll over to these people. You know what I'm saying? So if they're going to come after me and kill me, they're going to come after me. And, I'll put up the fight, and whatever happens, happens. That's how I look at it. I refuse to crawl under the rock. And I hope there's a lot of other citizens out there that feel that way. And maybe we can turn this around, because if we don't, we're a dead society here.
Chris, I've been a political prisoner myself for 10.5 months. That you're aware of, and the classify me as a test case, and they're trying to send me off to Springfield, where all the Iran-Contra players are, Siberia, USA. You can't get a phone call out of there and all that. And of course, I got out of there with an evaluation, psychological evaluation. They sent me there saying, that I was a nut, and that I should be evaluated, et cetera, for supposedly making death threats to my former in-laws that never even happened. The tapes themselves are right up on my internet site. Anybody go in and look under my daughter, Amanda Millman, and listen to the tapes that got me arrested. There's no death threats in there, no terroristic threats that I was charged with. After 10.5 months, they didn't know what to do with me, so they finally dismissed the charges, kicked me out the door. I was credited for the savings loan. They called me a test case. Why a test case? Because I was classified as a national security threat for exposing George Herbert Walker Bush and Leonard Millman, my ex-in-laws, that had Neil Bush working at Silverado as a director of Silverado, of which Millman owned, MDC Holdings, the same company that did all the savings and loan, junk bond daisy chain, HUD fraud, the same people over and over and over again. Millman was, are the same ones involved in the current bank bailout and the whole bit. I mean, I get things, exposed behind the scenes, get things rattled, and then they come in and they just bail them out, or they just let them off. And nobody goes to jail. The big ones never go. They call them buffers. They got the Bernie Madoffs as a front. They've got the other ones, you know, the Phil Wynns, the Larry Mizels, the different ones that are all involved in this current